The narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever has never been about mere wins and losses. It is a sprawling, high-stakes drama, a collision of generational talent and simmering rivalry that has single-handedly elevated the WNBA to unprecedented levels of national scrutiny. Every matchup, every possession, is magnified under a cultural lens, but when the opponent across the floor wears the uniform of the Chicago Sky, and the physical embodiment of opposition is Angel Reese, the temperature doesn't just rise, it boils over into pure, unadulterated conflict. This is the stage upon which a critical moment unfolded on a recent Saturday afternoon, a moment so fraught with intentionality and immediate consequence that it begs the question, is the league's greatest heroine beginning to audition for the role of its greatest antagonist? The stakes were already monumental, but in the thick of the third quarter action, where the physical demands of professional basketball truly begin to test the mental fortitude of every player, the tension snapped. The sequence that led to the defining clash was textbook inside basketball, escalating from routine competition into raw physicality. Indiana's front court was battling fiercely for position. Following a missed shot attempt by Rebecca Allen, the ball caromed off the rim and became a prize for the hungry rebounders underneath the basket. It was here that Angel Reese, known for her relentless motor and powerful presence, engaged Indiana forward Natasha Howard. The push was undeniable, Reese using her strength and body to displace Howard from behind, securing the offensive rebound that could turn the tide of the quarter. This is the gritty, often overlooked work of a determined post player, utilizing every allowable inch of contact to gain an advantage. Reese corralled the ball and planted her feet, poised to rise up and convert the second chance opportunity. But before Reese could finish the play, before the scoreboard could reflect the result of her hard-fought possession, the contact came from an unexpected source, executed with startling precision and malice. Caitlin Clark, the player often lauded for her court vision and sublime shooting touch, delivered a hit that instantly transformed the action from a standard possession into a criminal offense on the court. Clark committed the foul, a jarring takedown executed with her left hand, catching Reese and sending her crashing heavily to the hardwood. The immediate visual evidence suggested an action beyond the pale of common basketball fouls. It seemed almost intentionally designed to send a message, calculated to disrupt not just the play, but the opponent herself. Reese fell hard, the impact echoing through the arena, and the atmosphere immediately shifted from competitive noise to shocked silence, quickly replaced by furious indignation. What happened next became the psychological signature of the incident, a microcosm of the intense, personal rivalry that defines these two superstars. Angel Reese, fueled by the aggression and the hard landing, instantly sprang back up. She did not waste time looking for the referees or appealing for medical attention. Her focus was singular, directed entirely at the player responsible for the intentional contact. Reese rose and moved directly into Clark's personal space, demanding accountability, ready to face her aggressor, standing face-to-face in a fiery confrontation that had been brewing across several highly publicized seasons. But the response from Clark was unexpected, perhaps even definingly problematic in the eyes of observers hungry for genuine competitive integrity. Clark didn't stand her ground. Clark didn't meet the challenge head-on. She simply turned and walked away, choosing to disengage from the physical and emotional dust-up she had emphatically initiated. This retreat, this conscious decision to avoid the immediate fiery consequence of her own aggressive action, struck a note that resonated deeply with those watching the drama unfold. The superstar, the face of the league, the one who had intentionally crossed the line of acceptable contact and caused the opponent to fall hard, chose to flee the scene rather than stand and accept the confrontation. It was a move that, in the rugged language of competitive sports, was assessed immediately as lacking conviction. The perception was clear, she was willing to stir the pot, but unwilling to deal with the inevitable heat. The delay for the official review was mandatory, necessitated by the sheer force and apparent intent behind Clark's action. The officials convened, dissecting the sequence frame by frame, analyzing the contact Clark deployed to drop Reese. Their determination was swift and severe. The contact was deemed unnecessary and excessive. Clark's personal foul was upgraded, transitioning into a flagrant foul, a ruling that carries significant weight, designating the action as clearly outside the normal scope of competitive basketball play. This was not a ticky-tack whistle. This was an official declaration that Clark had engaged in unacceptable aggression. The subsequent disciplinary action further cemented the sense that the game had devolved into pure, emotional warfare. Angel Reese, for her immediate and intense reaction to the flagrant foul, was assessed a technical foul. Likewise, Aaliyah Boston, Reese's teammate, who became involved in the ensuing chaotic reaction, also received a technical foul. The result was a volatile tableau, Clark receiving the serious charge of a flagrant, and her opponents receiving technicals for their frustrated responses to her aggression. The official ruling confirmed the intensity, but the narrative judgment was already settled on the court. For those who have been observing the volatile nature of the league's burgeoning superstar, this incident only adds complexity to an already controversial persona. The source material explicitly recalls Clark's past comment regarding white privilege, a statement that continues to draw strong reactions and fuel debates about identity and perception in sports. To now couple that controversial off-court remark with the on-court behavior of initiating a flagrant foul and then physically retreating from the resulting confrontation compounds the image problem. The assessment is harsh, visceral, and widely shared by those who see this pattern emerging, causing trouble, then backing away. The superstar who is supposed to be elevating the league's decorum is now dipping her toes into the dark arts of competitive villainy, but doing so without the follow-through necessary for genuine toughness. The defining takeaway of this high-impact sequence is the realization that the line between the league's heralded hero and its necessary antagonist has blurred, perhaps irrevocably. Angel Reese has long embraced the role of the foil, thriving in the energy of opposition and the narrative of competitive malice. But this calculated, flagrant move by Clark, followed by her controversial retreat, suggests that the face of Indiana Fever is capable of sinking to the same depths of aggressive intensity. The sheer audacity of the move, combined with the perception of weakness in avoiding the subsequent dust-up, creates a complex, flawed character for the Fever faithful to grapple with. The league has its superstar, undoubtedly, but it is now faced with the possibility that its shining beacon is willing to slide into the role of the agitator, confirming to the world that Angel Reese is definitively not the only player capable of embracing the villain archetype. This single flagrant foul and the resulting face-off have injected a new layer of intensity and personal enmity into the Indiana-Chicago rivalry, projecting a future where these matchups will be defined less by athletic grace and more by raw, unflinching hostility. The consequence for the Fever, beyond the flagrant penalty, is the growing realization that their star player, who is trying to carry the weight of a franchise, may be buckling under the pressure, resorting to tactics that alienate and invite intense scrutiny. This moment mattered profoundly, not just for the 2 points it prevented, but for the profound shift it signaled in the psychology of Caitlin Clark, transitioning from the darling of the court to a complex, perhaps even troubled figure in the WNBA landscape. The next meeting will not simply be a game, it will be an act of war, carrying the weight of this very public, very physical insult. The sheer velocity of the collision left the court momentarily suspended in a silence that was rapidly swallowed by the eruption of the crowd. Angel Reese hit the hardwood, the impact sickeningly audible, a direct consequence of Caitlin Clark's swift and arguably cynical defensive maneuver. It wasn't just a foul, it was an ignition. The immediate aftermath was everything the rivalry had been simmering toward, a boiling over of personal tension and competitive rage that demanded immediate resolution, both physical and judicial. Reese did not stay down. The moment was defined by the speed with which she sprang back up, shaking off the hit, her posture shifting instantaneously from defensive player to enraged aggressor. Her eyes locked onto Clark, and the distance between the two superstars vanished in an instant. This was the climax. After months of subtle jabs, passive aggression, and the white-hot media spotlight constantly comparing their respective impacts on the league, the two were finally violently, face-to-face in a confrontation stripped bare of media handlers or pre-game platitudes. Reese, fueled by the physical challenge and the obvious intent behind the takedown, the calculated use of the arm to ensure she hit the floor, moved aggressively into Clark's personal space. This was the moment for Clark to stand her ground, to own the edge she had just displayed, to solidify her commitment to the calculated villainy she seemed to be embracing on the court. If she was going to commit a foul that dangerous, a foul that sent a player crashing down after securing an offensive rebound that Natasha Howard had failed to secure, she needed to accept the subsequent heat. But what followed was a profound moment of narrative betrayal, a visible fissure in the persona Clark was trying to cultivate. Instead of meeting the challenge, instead of embracing the intensity she had provoked, Caitlin Clark simply walked away. She disengaged. She retreated. In the face of Angel Reese's justified fury, Clark turned her back, prioritizing distance over confrontation, prioritizing avoidance over the accountability of the physical chess move she had just executed. It was a stunning reversal, an act that read less as strategic cool-headedness and more as an uncomfortable unwillingness to deal with the messy primal consequences of aggressive basketball. To commit a near-intentional foul, to cause such a dramatic collision, and then immediately flee the emotional battlefield is, frankly, weak. It is the action of someone who wants the narrative benefit of being tough, of being the aggressor who refuses to back down, without absorbing the actual cost of standing toe-to-toe with the fire she started. The referees, recognizing the volatility of the situation, immediately intervened, separating the players and calling for an official review. The energy in the arena remained volcanic, spectators fixated on the monitors, waiting for the judicial hammer to fall. The officials meticulously reviewed the footage, scrutinizing the contact with Angel Reese, specifically the motion where Clark, with her left hand, distinctly swept Reese's arm and body, ensuring she lost balance and momentum, resulting in a hard fall. The verdict was swift and damning. What was initially flagged as a standard personal foul was immediately escalated to a flagrant 1 foul. This ruling is significant. It is the league's official declaration that the contact was excessive, unnecessary, and potentially injurious, a recognition that Clark's play crossed the boundary from aggressive defense into dangerous conduct. This single decision fundamentally shifted the narrative for the evening and, potentially, for the rivalry moving forward. Clark was no longer just the rookie phenom struggling with foul trouble. She was now the perpetrator of a flagrant, calculated takedown, officially judged by the league to have acted outside the bounds of competitive sportsmanship. But the chaos did not stop there. The officials, attempting to regain control of an intensely fractured moment, then levied technical fouls on the players involved in the subsequent scuffle and verbal exchange. Angel Reese received a technical foul for her passionate, aggressive response, an expected consequence of standing up to such a challenge. Crucially, her Chicago Sky teammate, Aaliyah Boston, who rushed in to defend Reese and engage in the ensuing argument, also received a technical foul. The distribution of these punishments highlighted the intense, multiplayer volatility that Clark's flagrant action had unleashed. The score was now not just points on the board, but flagrant 1 for Clark, and a pair of technical fouls for the Chicago side, underscoring the severe implications of the entire exchange. This entire sequence, the flagrant takedown, the confrontational rise of Reese, and Clark's immediate, almost panicked retreat, cemented a profound psychological reading of Caitlin Clark that is difficult to ignore. The initial excitement around her arrival in the WNBA was partially predicated on her ability to generate tension and back it up. Yet, her actions here suggest a fundamental hesitancy to fully embrace the contentious role she is rapidly acquiring. Consider the recent history. Only weeks ago, the conversation surrounding Clark was already fraught, specifically concerning her dismissive comment regarding white privilege. That statement, delivered with a casual indifference that many found grating, painted Clark as someone willing to wade into complex, controversial socio-political waters. She was willing to talk a big game, willing to use provocative language to frame herself and her status. But that willingness to provoke off the court seems to clash dramatically with her desire to avoid the ensuing mess on it. The flagrant foul was Clark's chance to fully slide into the villain role the WNBA arguably needs, the unapologetic, trash-talking antagonist who takes risks and accepts the backlash. Instead, by immediately turning her back and walking away from the confrontation with Angel Reese, she projected an image of someone wanting all the benefits of causing trouble, the intensity, the competitive edge, the narrative focus, without having to pay the emotional or physical tariff. It reads as a massive disconnect, aggressive intent followed by immediate, almost timid withdrawal. This behavior is the definition of attempting to play the villain without the requisite backbone to withstand the resulting firestorm. It is a strategic inconsistency that undermines her credibility as the league's dominant heel. This moment in the third quarter was not merely a foul call, it was the definitive crystallization of the Clark-Reese rivalry as fundamentally hostile, aggressive, and deeply personal. It transitioned the rivalry from a media creation based on college statistics to a genuine fiery conflict defined by hard contact and emotional flare-ups. The WNBA now has its defining competitive tension, forged in the heat of a flagrant foul and the subsequent fallout. The lasting takeaway is simple: if Caitlin Clark intends to play the role of the aggressive disruptor, the player who pushes boundaries and initiates contact that requires a flagrant one ruling, she must accept the ensuing responsibility. She cannot be the instigator who then refuses to engage when the confrontation inevitably arrives at her doorstep. Her retreat was not a show of professional maturity, it was a visible act of weakness in the face of the intensity she herself had manufactured. The consequence is clear: the narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark is forever altered. She is no longer just the unparalleled shooter, she is now a player willing to commit flagrant fouls, yet unwilling to look her primary rival in the eye when the adrenaline spikes. This episode ensures that every future meeting between the Fever and the Sky will be dissected not for jump shots or assists, but for the physical contact, the intensity, and the willingness of both superstars to stand their ground when the court turns into a battlefield. Angel Reese proved she is ready for the escalation. The question now looms, heavy and inescapable: is Caitlin Clark truly prepared to be the villain she accidentally became, or will she continue to cause problems and then run from the reckoning? The league, the fans, and her opponents are watching, waiting to see if she ever stops fleeing the heat she is so determined to create. Until she fully embraces the chaos she initiates, the shadow of that retreat will define her contentious image. The weak display in that third quarter may cost her far more than 2 free throws and a flagrant one on the stat sheet. It may cost her the respect of those who demand that aggression be matched with accountability.